Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular city council meeting of Monday, May 9th, 2011, with a roll call, please.
Mayor Gino Martini.
Here.
Acting City Clerk Brooks here. Council members Jill Uretti. Here. Ed Lawson.
Here.
Ron Smith.
Here.
Mike Kerrigan.
Here.
Ron Schmidt.
Here.
City Manager Sean Carey.
Here.
Acting City Attorney Cheryl Eiding. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you'd all stand now for Bishop Clay Jorgensen, Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints will give an invocation. Welcome, Pastor. Bishop, I'm sorry.
Our beloved Father in heaven, as we gather here in this Skid City Council meeting today, we are grateful for the men and women who serve in our community. We're grateful for the armed forces who serve so valiantly throughout the world. We're grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy to speak, to worship, and to participate in activities and meetings such as this. We're grateful for the families and the people of this community, and we ask at this time that Thou would bless this community, that the difficult times that we are going through economically will be eased, and that we will be able to have success in the endeavors of the city. We ask that Thou would bless the men and women who serve on this council, that they will be wise in their decisions, that their decisions will bless the lives of the families that live here, that all will be well within our community. We're grateful for the success that our armed forces have had over the past week and for the great nation that we belong to. We ask that Thou would continue to bless us as we are righteous and keep Thy commandments and do Thy will. And this we pray for and say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop, for those kind words. If you remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Lawson, will you lead us, please?
Yes, please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is comments from the public. Anybody want to speak under comments from the public?
I do.
You may not.
Please.
Just kidding.
I just wanted to take a minute to introduce my mother-in-law, Eunice Kavanaugh, who is visiting from South Dakota, and welcome her to Sparks.
Welcome, Eunice. Okay, next is Mr. Kerrigan wants to speak. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, are you the one that brought the snow with you?
Yeah. Okay, next is approval of the agenda. Anybody want to take anything out of order? If not, looking for a motion. And the machine, I believe, is working. When you push into request, I should be able to figure it out. Okay, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
Move to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan to approve the agenda as outlined by staff. Any further discussions? Seeing none, please vote. Okay, passes unanimously. Is there someone that wanted to do public comment? Oh, okay. You are Jill? I am. It has here number 4, Spark Senior Citizen Center. So. I'm representing the Okay, come on down. I'm sorry. Come on down to the microphone. You have 3 minutes. Jill Andrea.
Hi, I'm Jill Andrea, and I am the chairperson of the Spark Special Seniors. The Spark Special Seniors are a group of volunteers at the Spark Senior Center. We're here to some degree today to support your support of the Older American Month. I don't know if you realize Older American Act was the real impetus to give services, provide services for seniors. And we're here to thank the City of Sparks for your support over the years, for 20 years of the time we've been open, and to invite you all to a party we're having on Friday, the 13th, at 2 to 5 at 97 Richards Way here at the Senior Center to celebrate our 20th anniversary. We'd love to have you come. You've all helped us, and we'd like to thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Jill, are you here to get the proclamation for older
No,
Americans?
I wasn't.
Oh, okay. We're going to read that in a few minutes if you want to stick around.
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. And I apologize for not recognizing you at first. Okay, next is recommendation to approve minutes of March 21st and March 30th. Any additions or corrections? Looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty,
Move to approve as presented.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve the minutes of March 21st, April 25th, and March 30th, and July 12th of 2010. Those are joint council meetings. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Okay, I've got one quick special presentation I'd like to make. I have a flag here for someone that's on the council who I think I was told when he left the service of our country was not given one of the flags. So our staff decided to contact the Navy and get this thing presented today. So is that correct, Mr. Kerrigan?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. So we have a flag here that was flown over the naval base at Fallon, and I'd like to read a little, if I can get it open. Certificate of Flag Presentation presented to Lieutenant Commander Michael Andrew Kerrigan. In tribute to your 20 years of faithful and honorable service to the United States Navy and to your shipmates on board Naval Air Station Fallon, the United States flag accompanying this certificate is presented to you. With this flag, you will carry the memories, experiences, and the exhilaration of an exciting and fulfilling career. The accompanying United States flag was proudly flown over Naval Air Station Fallon at 0800 hours on this 4th day of April, 2008. Signed, M.H. Glazer, Captain, U.S. Navy, Commanding Officer, Naval Air Station Fallon.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Mike.
Go ahead and say something there, Mike.
The last couple of weeks have been pretty surprising. I know some of you know. I went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and now, almost 20 years later, I get the flag that they forgot to give me when I retired out of the military. So whose ever idea this was, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
It was your staff that was Mr. Carey, Mr.
Well, thank
Mayberry.
you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, can I put that back? Sure. Thanks. Okay, now we have some proclamations to give. First, I'll do Older Americans Month. And seeing that there's nobody older on the dais, I'll go ahead and read this. I fit this perfectly. I resemble this remark. Proclamation. Whereas older adults in Sparks, Nevada are the roots from which our community grows. They bestow gifts of wisdom and insight upon younger generations and strengthen the bonds between neighbors to create a better place to live. And whereas our society can be enhanced by older adults aging peacefully in their communities. And whereas older adults in Sparks should be commended for their role in creating and bolstering the fiber of our community and nation. And whereas Sparks can provide that recognition and respect by enriching the quality of life for older Americans by increasing their opportunities to remain in their communities as active and engaged citizens, providing services, technologies, and support systems that all seniors to foster and maintain connections within the community. and emphasizing the value of elders by publicly recognizing their contributions to diversity, strength, and unity of our city. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim May 2011 Older Americans Month, and urge every citizen to take time this month to honor our adults and professionals, family members, and volunteers who care for them. Our recognition of older Americans and their involvement in our lives can help us achieve stronger and more meaningful connections with each other and enrich our community's quality of life. So thank you so much, folks, for being here. We appreciate it. Grady is here. Come on up, Grady.
Right here, we're going to do two of these.
For the record, Grady Tarbutton, Director of Washoe County Senior Services. I'd really like to thank the City Council, especially Councilman Lawson and Julia Ratty, for the work that they've done over the past year in helping us at the Sparks Senior Center. I think we have a pretty good turnout here from Sparks Senior Center. Those volunteers have been responsible for increasing the attendance and the activities at the center from their effort. And nobody deserves more credit in how well the center is doing than those volunteers. So Jill Andrea and her crowd have done a great job. I want to give them a round of applause. Thank you very much for the proclamation. We have a growing population of seniors, growing every year, and the work that we can do together to keep the center open and operating is something that I look forward to. So thank you again for the proclamation.
Thank you,
I
Grady.
want to remind you that this is Older Americans Month, and you have a copy of the program in front of you. Encourage you to get involved, not least of which of joining us down at the center on Friday for the 20th year anniversary.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grady. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Okay, next is a proclamation for National Public Works Week. Someone here to accept this? Come on up. Have a seat. Okay, proclamation. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our residents' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of our public works programs and components such as engineering, design, construction, and traffic, maintenance, traffic safety, collection, facilities, streets, and fleet, and wastewater, collection, treatment, and reuse. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depend on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of our public works services and facilities, as well as their planning, design, construction, maintenance, and operation, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of our public works staff. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the community's understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim May 15th through the 21st, 2011, National Public Works Week, serving you and your community, and call upon all residents and civic organizations to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For the record, I am an older American, but that's not why I'm standing here. I'm representing APWA at the state chapter level, and Deanna Gray is the Northern Nevada branch president, and we would like to thank you very much for this recognition and resolution on behalf of all of the diligent, hard-working men and women in public works. And I'd ask that next week, during this week, when you are in a work zone, that you smile and wave at the workers with all of your fingers. Anything that you would like to add?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. And then from our city, Mr. Kreutz.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martini and members of the City Council. For the record, Neil Kreutz, Director of Community Services. As you know, we combined our Public Works Department with Community Development and Parks Maintenance to form our new Community Services Department. So I'm here today speaking on behalf of all Community Services employees. We certainly enjoy the opportunity to plan, design for, construct, and maintain all manner of public facilities on behalf of the city, from the room that we're sitting in today to the streets that we all drove on to get here, to the pipes under the streets that most of the public doesn't concern themselves with, but they know that when they flush the toilet, it's not a problem for them. It is work that is largely unseen and unsung. And I'm very pleased that the council is taking an opportunity to recognize the efforts of those employees of our city, because frankly, without them, it would be a civic mess. So thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it. Okay, we have one more that's not on the agenda, but it's for Emergency Medical Services Week. If I could have Mr. Jim Goebbels and Mr. Mitch Nowicki come on up, please. These gentlemen are with REMSA. And I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service and the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illnesses or injury. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas REMSA and CareFlight's commitment to patient care throughout Northern Nevada has been an integral factor in the safety, security, and success of our communities. And whereas the region is proud to have an organization such as REMSA and CareFlight operating within the state to ensure the highest quality of patient care and community support. And whereas REMSA is one of the only 3 organizations in North America to be accredited by the Commission on Accreditation of Ambulance Services, the Commission on Accreditation of Medical Transportation Systems, and the National Academies of Emergency Dispatch. And whereas REMSA's successes are an indication of the dedication of REMSA and CareFlight's employees and staff to the communities they serve. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim May 15th through the 21st, 2011, Emergency Medical Services Week.
I would like to request that the staff gets out of their chair.
The ones that do the real work?
Yeah.
For the record, are we on?
It's on.
For the record, Jim Goebbels, Vice President of REMSA. It is my pleasure to be able to accept this proclamation on behalf of the staff of REMSA and CareFlight. We are greatly appreciative that you are honoring us during EMS Week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Okay, next is presentation on activities of the brand leadership team. Mr. Mayberry.
Good afternoon, Mayor, and everyone else here today. How are you all? Craig Knutson with Tenenberg Construction, also the chairman of the brand leadership team. I just want to do a quick presentation of what we've done last year and a real short presentation and what we're doing this year as far as moving forward with the brand leadership team. And first off, I'd just like to thank all the volunteers and staff and the Tormark Committee on their support of this committee. We have myself, who's the chairman of the committee, Beth Cooney, Dennis McGovern, Tom Young with Great Basin, Joe Lopez, Seth Sheck. With regards to the organizations that are here, we have Len Stevens with the Chamber, Trey Abney with the Chamber, Jennifer with the RCVA, and Neetha with Humphreys with the museum, and also the City of Sparks, Adam Mayberry, Tracy, and Greg with the Parks Department. Without their support, we've got a great group of people here. We've been able to do a lot. You can see it around us with the logo and the brand leadership team that the theming that we've been doing. So, excuse me, I'm a little nervous. And then also our consultant Renell, who's really helped us with keeping all the meetings and the agendas and everything put together. Let's just go over the accomplishments that we've done in the last year. One of the major things that we've been able to do is getting the website put together and streamlining of the events. We've established the logo. We've gotten all of the branding put together, and we're implementing those as part of our commitment to creating the brand for the City of Sparks. As you can see here, as we change out the signs and things like that, as the city does, we are able to implement the ideas that we have set forth. We've got the new banners, the bannering on the buses, the flag, also down at the Legends. They've added a lot of the logos down in some of the buildings down there also. We've been streamlining the process as far as getting events to the City of Sparks and promoting some of those events and trying to get the event producers here into town and trying to get more events established in the City of Sparks. This was the FAM tour that was done last year. It was very successful for the first year. We did the FAM tour, and we're going to do another one again this year, I believe at the rib cook-off to bring more attention to the events that are in the City of Sparks. We have the new website that was launched last week. I don't know if any of you have been on that, but it's a very dynamic website, and I think it's going to help a lot in the way of how the city does business and attracting events to the city. Here's a picture of that. Have all of you been on that website yet, or what do you think? Wonderful. Pretty good, huh? Yeah, it's very user friendly. It's a good website. Special events calendar has also been enhanced on the website, and we are also going to be utilizing that in promotions in the kiosks and advertising and things like that. It's Hot August Nights. These are some of the events that occur down in Victorian Square with the Wild West Rodeo? Was that? Arts in Bloom, which luckily the weather was good yesterday for that, and the snow didn't happen until today, unlike last year. It was a little bad. Cool Cars, Street Vibrations. The Sparks Farmers Market is being moved down to the new venue in the Victorian Square. They're coming up with a new Victorian Square Summer, which will be happening down in front of the restaurants and bars located on Victorian Square. A Day on the Village Green, Classic Rods, Star Spangled Sparks. Another new one is the Reno Sparks Regional Chili Cook-Off. So there's a lot of events going on down in Victorian Square. Here we are at the Golden Eagle Ballpark. It's a wonderful venue. I don't know if any of you guys have been out there, but it's spectacular. I mean, it's unbelievable out there. These are all the events that are occurring with regards to the softball tournaments that are happening out there all summer. There's close to 1 million people that go out to that event, all those different venues and those events out there during the summer. The Marina, another great venue for the city of Sparks. This is the fishing day out there. These are all the other events that occur out the Marina area. The Humane Society, Star Spangled Sparks, Kids Free Fishing Day. We have a new one. It's the Sandcastle or the Stars. That's supposed to be a real neat event now with some professional sand guys that do the sand castles and things like that. So that should be very good. There's other venues in Sparks with the Mayor's Cup golf tournament and the Crafts for Christmas. The other venues out there. This year, this was all kind of occurring in the last year. This year we met with the Tourmark Committee, and thanks to Chairman Ron Schmidt and Ron Smith and Steve Esquaga on the Tourmark Committee. We met with them three or four times and went over kind of the priorities of what we were looking forward to do this year and continuing to promote the City of Sparks and the events and the venues for the City of Sparks. Local advertising, we would have advertising at the RGJ, also outdoor billboards on Reno.com and at the airport to promote events that are occurring in the City of Sparks. We also are going to have another fam tour during the Rib Cook-Off, and we're getting that all coordinated with also. And in September is when we're going to be doing that fam tour, so hopefully we'll get more attendance in that. We'll also be creating more special event banners. They'll be going into the kiosks in the different areas of Victorian Square, also in the Marina area, down towards the Legends and out at the ballpark. We'll be also doing a mobile app, which is on top of the website that we have right now, which will be more easily used on the cell phone systems and more integral, so you can pull up things on your cell phones, or when someone comes into town, they can utilize the mobile app. Also, we have renewed the PR firm's contract, and they help us organize all these things, get these fam tours set up, and keep everything on track as far as our promotions go. Also, we're in the process right now. I have a meeting next week. I'm also the chairman of the Wayfinding Committee, and we're finalizing a master plan that shows all the locations of our signage and wayfinding for the different venues. As people come off of the freeway, they can get directional signage, and we'll have a good style of getting that wayfinding taken care of. And I should have that finalized next week, and then we're going to start that implementation of the wayfinding signs within the City of Sparks. And then there was a picture earlier, we had changed out the chamber sign down on Victorian Square to the new logo, and I think that really pops on the freeway when you drive by and take a look at that. We're also looking to recruit more events. Tracy and Greg have been contacting different event producers, and we're trying to promote more events with regards to that. And we've been meeting also with the Victorian Square Association, the Merchants Association down there, trying to get them a little more organized, if we can. So, thank you very much. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Craig, thanks for all the hard work and stuff you do. I know it's
my pleasure. It's not
takes
just
a lot
me.
of
I
time.
tell you that we got a great group of people here. So hopefully we can continue to move forward and get things going around here.
Yeah, the stuff that you got going really looks great.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you very
great.
much.
That sign, and I think the sign down by the Victorian Yesco sign helped us with it, didn't it?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to thank them too. So, questions, Ron Smith.
Just a comment, you guys work harder than anybody I know, and I appreciate it. I mean, you guys have come such a long way. All professional and volunteers to boot, and it's appreciated, Craig.
Well, thank
It
you.
really is.
It's exciting to see something come of, when you work on something like this, and it's got a lot going on right now.
Yeah, we started a couple years ago, and you just grabbed the ball and ran with it. So
Thank
it's
you.
fantastic job. Thank you.
Ron Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Craig, I just want to say thank you again to you and the whole team, for everybody who's on it. I think you guys have done a great job, but it's truly, I don't think the public is aware this is a private-public partnership we have, and all the good that's come from it. And I think it's caused some stuff for staff to go ahead and do, but it's also taken a lot of responsibility, a lot of exercise away from them to go ahead and get some stuff done. So I think appreciate it, and you guys are a pleasure to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Thanks for the update. Okay, next, let's go to consent items 5.1, 5.2. Anybody want to pull a consent item? If not, if you would please, when you want to make a motion, please ring in so we can get you on the record. And I've finally figured out how to recognize you on my computer, so shouldn't be a problem. Okay, looking for a motion for consent items. Mr. Smith.
Move to approve consent items 5.1 and 5.2.
Do you have a second? Ms. Ratty.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty to approve consent items 5.1 and 5.2. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Moving on to general business, 6.1, consideration and possible approval to terminate the agreement of sale of treated effluent with Washoe County for service at 5 parks in unincorporated Spanish Springs. Colonel.
Good afternoon. For the record, Joanne Meacham, Utility Manager for the City of Sparks. The agenda item before you is to request to cancel 5 separate agreements governing effluent service to 5 parks in unincorporated Spanish Springs. We have an ordinance in place that we'd like to serve these parks under, and the net change to the customer is about $900 less per month, so there is a benefit to Washoe County. These contracts have been through Washoe County Commission and terminated by them, subject to termination here at Sparks Council. We have ordinance in place since 2008 and have long desired to migrate contract customers to ordinance so that we have the same terms and conditions for service for all customers. So this is consistent with past policy. And that's all I have.
Questions, Mr. Smith?
First of all, I'd like to say I'm impressed that you're still here, seeing this is your last day. Usually they cut her out around noon, and we're going to miss you, Joanne. I've told you that before. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you.
Now, this has been offered to everybody that's on effluent water.
That's correct.
To move to the ordinance.
At the time we put the ordinance into effect around April of 2008, we wrote a letter to all customers served under contract and let them know that service is available under ordinance.
So we won't hear anything that we're doing favors for Washoe County. We do it for everybody that's on the
That
effluent
is correct.
system. Okay.
Yes, that
Thank
is
you.
correct.
Mr. Carrigan.
Yeah, just real quick, what do we have left for effluent as far as being able to sell?
In terms of supply,
Mm-hmm.
we have joint ownership of 6,700 acre feet with the city of Reno, and Tumworth is the source of that effluent. If you looked at a 2/3, 1/3 share, Sparks owning 1/3 of that, it is about, well, I'm not going to do that math in my head.
3,100, 3,200.
We have slightly over that in commitments to customers.
Okay.
But again, keeping in mind that water rights law is first come, first served, and the combination of Reno and Sparks cannot go over 6,700 acre feet, and we're a couple of thousand under that jointly.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Not looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
I move to approve the termination of the agreement for sale of treated effluent with Washoe County for service at 5 parks in Spanish Springs and subsequently service the 5 parks under the terms and conditions set forth in the Sparks Municipal Code 13.85 effluent service.
Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Do you have something, Mr. Carey? Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Ratty, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve 6.1. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Joanne, are you presenting any other items? Okay, I won't say anything until then. Okay, moving on to 6.2 PCN 10020. Discussion and possible action on a request for final approval of an amendment to the Plan Development Handbook, Legends at Sparks Marina to revise development standards. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, council members. Tim Thompson, Senior Planner for the record. Before you today is a request for final approval of an amendment to the Legends at Sparks Marina Plan Development Handbook. The City Council granted tentative approval back in January. At that time, there was some discussion about the requirement of having hotel rooms constructed with any non-restricted gaming operation, and so there is one change to the tentative approval, and I'll just go ahead and read that now. Any non-restricted gaming operation shall include the construction of more than 200 rooms available for sleeping accommodations and any other requirements set forth in Nevada revised statutes for a resort hotel. A non-restricted gaming operation which does not meet these requirements shall not be approved. The sleeping accommodation shall be constructed and operated in conjunction with the non-restricted gaming operation. So hopefully that will help to address some of the concern that the council had at the previous meeting. Aside from that, there are no changes to the handbook that would alter any of the 5 criteria in state law. Therefore, staff is recommending that you approve the final handbook. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Tim. Mr. Smith.
The 200 rooms, that was already in the handbook.
It is not. It was just the way the handbook is structured is the hotel accommodations and the non-restricted gaming are both separate. And I think the concern is that anytime we have a non-restricted gaming operation, we want to have the 200 hotel rooms with it.
So now it basically says they get done together.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. We cannot approve a non-restricted gaming operation without having the 200 rooms.
A non-restricted.
Non-restricted gaming. Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
I move to approve PCN 10020 as the final draft is in substantial compliance with the City Council's action on the tentative approval of the Legends at Sparks Marina Plan Development Handbook and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Ratty, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve PCN 10020. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes 4-1. Mr. Kerrigan, no. Thanks, Tim. 6.3, progress report on the design for scope of services EMS system analysis. Mr. Freevold, Chief.
For the record, Frank Freevold, Division Chief, Sparks Fire Department, filling in for Chief Flock today. Before you have a progress report on the scope of services EMS system analysis. Chief Flock was originally given guidance to participate on the design committee. They've completed that work. Behind the staff item there, you'll see an outline of the analysis they come up with in terms of design. Our recommendation would be to proceed with the next phase of that work.
Is that it, Chief?
Trying to keep it short.
Okay, good. So far you've succeeded. Questions for Chief Freevold? Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, one of your things out of the staff report here is just a one-line sentence during design meetings for analysts. Which occurred under open meeting laws. It was uncertain if all parties were providing the data needed to conduct the analysis. What does that mean?
In the third, I believe it was the third meeting of that group, Chief Flock advised, and it's recorded in open meeting notes, that at least one of the groups may not be willing to provide data that, at least at this point, seems like it would be necessary for the analysis. So the recommendation that we have is essentially that we participate with the study. We provide all of our data. It's public record. But that our contribution to that effort of $20,000, that we shouldn't pay that unless all the parties are going to provide the data we need to do the analysis.
I think that's fair, isn't it? Everybody contribute what they have up front, then, so that keeps the cost down by having to reinvent the wheel.
Well, we think it's important to participate in the study. I think there'll be some really good benefit there. We'll always provide our data. But our recommendation would be to not pay for a study that would essentially have incomplete data.
And we've outlined all the interested parties who are going to be part of this, beneficiaries throughout the system, who's going to benefit from the analysis once it's done.
Well, I would think region-wide everyone would benefit. In terms of frontline folks involved in it, I think there's a total of approximately 7. I do not have that list in front of me in terms of on the design team.
And our share of that is $20,000?
That was the approximate amount that we were given, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Smith.
Thanks, Chief. I do support the caveat in there for $20,000 if everybody brings their information forward, and then we, without being transparent, you can't do this study properly. So that was a good move, and I would support this.
Mr. Lawson.
And I too, Chief, will support it without the $20,000 unless we have complete information from all parties. It doesn't make sense to pay for something that we're going to have a speculation on, that we don't have all the facts, in particular. So,
understood.
Anyone else? If not, looking for a motion, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to make a motion. I move to approve the City of Sparks continued participation in the scope of services, the emergency medical services system analysis, including the $20,000 contribution towards the cost analysis, providing that all regional agencies, local government and hospitals, private ambulance providers provide the requested data for such analysis.
Do you have a second, Mr. Smith?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Schmidt, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 6.3. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. Okay, next is 6.4, consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 3193 to abolish the Sparks Parking District Fund, a special revenue fund, and providing for other matters properly relating thereto.
Hi, I'm Debbie Hunt, Accounting Manager for the record. And the Governmental Accounting Standards Board issued Statement 54, which redefined what a special revenue fund was. Under their new definitions of all the revenues, a substantial portion of the revenues in a special revenue fund needs to be restricted or committed. And under this new definition, the Sparks Parking District no longer qualifies. It's funded, it's been in existence for 30 years, and it's funded from transfers from the general fund to pay electric fees. There's $6,000 in the fund, and I'm looking for your permission to abolish that fund and put that $6,000 in the general fund.
Councilman Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Debbie, we went over this in the budget hearings, and I fully agree with you that this needs to be done. I just want to have some stuff on a record for the public to understand why this type of thing is happening and what a lot more things are going to be happening in the future when it comes to GASB 54 and the disclosures that local governments have to do from now on. That we have a much tighter set of rules. Our year-end financial statements have to disclose these types of things. And so I want to make sure that this is not something we're doing just because we want to do it. It's because the federal government has come down, and this is one of many changes we have to make. So thank you, Debbie.
Anyone else? Okay, looking for a motion. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt resolution number 3193 to abolish the Sparks Parking District Fund, a special revenue fund, and provide for other matters properly relating thereto.
A second? Ms. Ratty.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Schmidt, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty to approve resolution number 3193. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Next is 6.5, consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 3194 to establish a special revenue fund called Sparks Grants and Donations. Go ahead, Debbie.
Hi, again, not because we always want the same number of funds, but this one it makes sense to create a new special revenue fund at the same time that we're abolishing one. This fund would be to account for the governmental funds receiving grants. Currently, numerous grants are recorded in the general fund, the revenues recorded there, and the expenses that are attributed to that grant spending distort the departmental spending year over year. If we can get the revenues and expenses out, then you could see a more linear progression of department spending. So I'm looking for approval to approve the resolution to establish the Sparks Grants and Donation Fund.
Questions, Ms. Ratty?
And isn't it also true on this one that it makes sense because these grants and donations that come in almost always come in with a designation that they must be spent on a certain activity or a certain project, and so therefore they're restricted and really aren't properly reflected in a general fund?
They will most definitely meet the designation for restricted or committed. They could be reported in the general fund. We don't have to create a special revenue fund, but they definitely meet the requirements to be reported in one.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Smith.
I move to adopt resolution number 3194 to establish a special revenue fund called Sparks Grants and Donations.
Mr. Schmidt.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Schmidt to approve resolution number 3194. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Debbie. 6.6, consideration and possible approval of allocating $10,000 to the Northern Nevada Chamber of Commerce, $95,200 for the Brand Leadership Team 2011 budget, and $1,800 to Young Electric Sign Company for the Tourism and Marketing Fund. Mr. Mayberry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members, city manager. Carrie Adam Mayberry, I'm the community relations manager. For the record, the item you have before you is approval of the recent tourism and marketing committee allocations. All of the itemized numbers are below the 25,000 threshold, but I know it's very important from Councilman Schmidt and Councilman Smith, who both serve on that committee, to take these items to the council for approval. We have, however, spent $1,800 on the Yesco sign to replace the sign at the old Sparks Chamber of Commerce building. So that was an oversight and should not have been on the agenda. But the other items are for your approval.
Questions, Mr. Lawson?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to have to abstain from this item 6.6 because I work for a Young Electric Sign Company.
Okay, noted. Any other questions? If not, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
Did you want to make it?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I was pushing the wrong button.
I move to approve the funding allocations as listed.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 6.6 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes 4-0 with Mr. Lawson abstaining.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. Next is 6.7, consideration and possible approval of fiscal year 2011-12 expenditures for city memberships and contributions. Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Prior to the adoption of the budget, this gives the City Council an opportunity to review the memberships and contributions that the city makes from its general government account. Really no changes are proposed this coming year over last year. The recommended funding level is $45,787. This will go towards the Economic Development Authority in the amount of $32,000. That would come back to you for final approval at the time the agenda item is ready. The Alliance for Innovation, which is a information and innovation sharing system in the United States that the city is a member of, will continue funding of the ICMA comparative performance measurements Center for the measurement of our outcomes here at the City of Sparks, and then a contribution for Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful in the amount of $6,012. You have other opportunities which are listed in the staff report, and we would simply like your approval or direction today. Thank you.
Questions? Mr. Lawson.
Yes, Mr. Carey, I'm just wondering why we didn't lower our amount of contribution this year by 6% to accurately reflect what we're asking the City of Sparks employees to do.
It's certainly within the council's purview. There was no distinction that I could answer.
Okay. That would be what I'd like to see, is I'd like to see that be reduced by 6% in the same amount that we're asking the employees of Sparks to take.
Mr. Carrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Sean, on the EDON, if they merge with the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce and Northern Nevada Chamber of Commerce, where are we going to go with this? Isn't that the plan, to do that?
That's certainly in the works between those three organizations. Mike, this would just set the inclusion of this in the budget. It would come back to you in next fiscal year. I think Mr. Alfie was here just a few weeks ago on his annual presentation, but this is just for budget inclusion. I think your point is well taken, that there will be changes between the three organizations, and we certainly would need to analyze the membership to those three organizations as a package.
Okay, so this is just the placeholder for the budget then, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One other comment on that, on EDON and the chambers merging. I think the last time I talked with Mr. Boyd and Mr. Stevens, they're still probably 18 months away from doing the EDON portion of this thing, so it's still a long way to go for them. So they're going to probably need funding for next time. And again, it's there to be taken away if we need to. Ms. Ratty again.
So, do you have, trying to get some clarity around Councilman Lawson's suggestion, do you have what we spent or what we budgeted on these last year? Because I know, for instance, there's a couple of these in here that we chose not to do this year. And so is the 6% cut that you're looking for compared to what we spent last year?
Yes.
Because compared to what we spent last year, I would think that it's going to be significantly lower than what's in this budget, particularly because of the League of Cities.
As outlined in the staff report, we do not show a contribution last fiscal year for the Nevada League of Cities, the National League of Cities, a Reno Sparks Chamber membership, or a Sparks Chamber membership out of this particular fund. So we only applied the same organizations that were actually funded by council decision last year for the budget.
So they were in the budget, but then we chose not to actually spend them when they came forward as individual items?
No, you voted not to include the Nevada League of Cities and the National League of Cities in the budget last year, so they therefore did not come forward.
Sorry, I'm looking at the lines wrong. I've got it now. So you'd like to see us go 6% less than what we did last year?
Correct.
And staff has already negotiated with each of these that are left in the budget for a reduced rate?
We are building a budget. The individual actions would be based upon at the time we're invoiced, as has been our practice.
Okay.
So you want to include that in there, Mr. Lawson? Now, what happens in the case where we don't get a 6% reduction? Will we come back and add that back in, or?
That's a good question. Yes, we probably should. I want to keep it in fairness and the level playing field. If we're asking our employees to take reductions, then I think it's fair we ask people that we give money to take reductions also.
Okay, next, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just need clarification on the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce. We chose not to be a member last year.
I believe that's correct. Prior to last year, we did have a city membership, and I believe that's been reduced to just individual memberships, as I recall last year.
Okay, we could just kind of double check and make sure that. And then the Sparks Chamber of Commerce, it was my understanding that they were requiring two things out of us. We had to be a member chamber because we just did a $10,000 contribution for them on the last agenda item, but they wouldn't take and do that money without us being a member. They wouldn't give us a discount on the membership. We had to pay both bills.
Okay.
And so if we vote on this today that we're not members of the Sparks Chamber of Commerce, I believe that null and voids our last vote, that we can't give them a contribution of $10,000 if we're not a member to them.
That was, I think we're becoming a sponsoring member. The one that's on the Reno Sparks is not the Sparks Chamber, it's the Reno Sparks Chamber.
Right. The conversations we had with Mr. Stevens of the Sparks Chamber of Commerce for the Northern Nevada Chamber of Commerce was that there was two requirements for that. One is that we had to be a member, pay membership dues, and then the $10,000 was non-negotiable for a corporate membership.
Yeah, we need to check on that then.
They both were combined. They're not combined, they were two separate items.
I thought they were the same, but let's definitely check on that.
Unless there's something that came down the pipeline after our meeting that said that they were going to forego the membership dues.
I don't remember that, but doesn't mean it didn't happen. But
Really?
I would think we would be a member of.
Yeah,
because we were trying to negotiate that the $10,000 would include our membership as well as the sponsorship.
That's correct.
But the word I got was that it couldn't. Am I wrong on that, or
I'm not sure. You're correct on what we did last year. Was the sponsorship and the membership. I remember that specific discussion here. I'm not able to enlighten on what occurred this year.
Yeah, we had same issue 2 years in a row, and it was a non-negotiable item.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Adam Mayberry, Community Relations Manager for the record. The corporate sponsorship that you just approved does not include the membership. Okay. Does not.
So
staff specifically
we're not
asked.
going to throw in a membership for $10,000.
No. Staff specifically asked for that, but that was
okay.
That was not part of the corporate membership.
That was a negotiation that we had, and there was no negotiation on it. It was $10,000 for the sponsorship, and the membership dues were $825. I don't know the exact amount, but there was no discount on either one of those.
Okay.
I'd be happy to ask that you include the membership in the Sparks Chamber with the proviso that it be returned to the council for a specific action, as you're just setting the budget today. But prior to joining that, we'll sort this out and return with an answer.
Mr. Kerrigan.
I'm going to make a motion here, and I think this might be a good solution. Taking the 6% that Ed wanted out here, I'm going to make a motion that we allocate $43,039.78 for our membership, and we can work out what we're going to be members of later.
10-4.
You have a second, Mr. Schmidt?
I'll second that motion with comment.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kerrigan, seconded by Mr. Schmidt. Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think that it's important to recognize the groups that have come forward and said that, we're going to take a reduction in cost of that, because there are some people that are recognizing that throughout the community. I know these were, in this year's budget, we're asking for additional 6%, but, those organizations that have realized they're working with the city, that, we're in a pinch, those are important to go ahead and let those organizations know that we appreciate it. We talk about EDOT. They did come forward last year with a 7.5% for that. Alliance for Innovation cut theirs in half, and then Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful also did a reduction, looks like about 5% or so. So I appreciate that, and I think they need to be recognized for their understanding.
Any other comments? Seeing no further comments, please vote. Mr. Schmidt.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'll go ahead and comment also after question.
Go ahead and comment.
Mr. Mayor, we've already done a formal vote on the Economic Authority, Development Authority of Western Nevada. Is that correct? At $32,275. That was done last month.
Yes.
Okay, does that come back now as part of the discussion, or is that just a fix and everybody else takes the cut?
Mayor Martini, members of the council, for the record, Neil Kreutz, Director of Community Services. That was related to this year's money, this year's budget.
2010-11.
Yes.
The one we're voting on is 11-12.
They came to us late in the year, and so we're in this year's budget. This is not for
This is for 11-12. Right, this is for 11-12.
Yes, sir. What you're talking about now is for 11-12.
Okay, can we just double check and verify that? Because I think the
Be happy to.
package, because I think they always come to us just before June for their next fiscal year, is the way it's always worked.
Be happy to check on that.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, does everyone understand what they voted on, or are we all set? It was a unanimous vote. Okay.
We do.
Pardon me?
We do.
Good. I don't. But I'm not voting, so it doesn't matter. Okay, 6.8, consideration and possible approval of the city's 5-year capital improvement plan, CIP, for fiscal years 2011 through 12 through 15-16, beginning July 1, 2011. This was continued from the meeting of 4/25. Mr. Cobb, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Chris Cobb, Capital Projects Coordinator. Again, I'm here before you this afternoon requesting approval of the 5-year CIP for fiscal years 11-12 through 15-16. Just as a recap before, to remind you, the total CIP is approximately $21 million for 11-12 next fiscal. The breakdown of that is 4.8 in our transportation fund, 1.9 in our capital projects, 1404 and 1405 funds, 1.5 million in our parks fund, 1402, 2.4 million throughout our 3 parks districts, 600,000 in our Victorian Room Square tax fund, 325,000 in our municipal court projects, 7.8 million in utility funds, 900,000 in our motor vehicle fund, and 400,000 in CDBG, which is still yet to be determined with the federal budget the way it is. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have regarding the CIP at this time.
Questions for Mr. Cobb? Mr. Smith?
I wasn't here, so why was this continued?
We were still meeting discussion on the city's overall budget, so it was moved until it could be the same meeting.
Thank you.
Questions? Looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty?
I move to approve the City of Sparks Capital Improvement Program for fiscal year 2011-2012 through 2016 as presented.
Do I have a second? Mr. Lawson?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve the CIP plan as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Mayor, I had an error on my vote there.
Can we clear the board and have a revote, please? Hello? Okay, go ahead and revote. Okay, it passes 3-2. Mr. Kerrigan, Mr. Schmidt, no. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. 6.9, consideration and possible approval of the city manager's recommendations for the City of Sparks' final budget for fiscal year 11-12. Mr. Carey. Mr. Cronk. Sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have before you, make sure I get the right one here. Yes. I have before you today, in your packet, I just kind of wanted to briefly give you an idea what we're covering. In your packet today, we have a staff report that covers the budget shortfall summary, the city manager's recommendations to meet that shortfall, the budget gap alternatives, which we've really discussed at length throughout the last year, most recently at the last budget workshop retreat that we had in March 21st, I believe. And then also in your packet, you'll find a summary of the other funds, which we've developed to prepare, or ready to prepare, to file the final budget on June, or by June 1st with the state. Also in your packet, I have a copy of the presentation, which I'll walk you through today. I have the general fund budget one-page summary, which encapsulates the city manager's recommendations as they stand right now. And also in your packet today is a department review, which shows a summary of all the financials per department under the new org structure that we've implemented, an overview of what that department does, and then the org charts. Now, I do want to put one little caveat on the department overviews that you see, because we do include the financial presentations. That's based upon what we know right now, but we are looking today for guidance, and depending on how that final outcome goes, those numbers may or may not change. So with that, I want to invite, before I get into the presentation, just invite any comments. Please interrupt me anytime you feel, this is meant to be interactive, because today we're looking for your guidance on how to prepare and file the final budget. Important dates to remember. We're going to bring back to you on May 17th for a public hearing on the tentative budget, which we have already filed with the state on April. Actually, we filed before April 15th. We're going to have a public hearing on that. That same day on May 17th, we're going to bring back the final recommendations, any input that you give us today to file the final budget, and we're hoping to get your approval so we could file it by June 1st. So with that, I'd like to just kind of dive right into this. And actually, let me do something a little different, because we do things differently in the accounting world, if you haven't figured that out. I'm going to go to the very end. This is what we're after today. Except I do reserve the right to go back to the front. So.
Okay.
We're seeking approval of the city manager's recommended actions to balance the fiscal year budget, or direction on alternative actions as they're outlined in your staff packet today. The second thing is the city manager is looking for the authority to work with the healthcare committee and all business units to implement a new high deductible health plan with health savings account for all city employees in lieu of a 6% wage decrease. The city manager is also seeking authority to seek wage and benefit concessions equal to a 6% wage decrease from all business units that do not agree to implement the new high deductible health plan. That's a mouthful. And also today, the city manager is seeking authority to implement layoffs within those business units that do not agree to implement the high deductible health plan or the equivalent wage and benefit concession. So that's kind of what we're after as far as direction-wise today. So as promised, I just kind of wanted to give you an outline here of how we got here and what we're looking for in the economy, and some of the trends that we're seeing, and why we're here today. Fiscal policies, as you recall, we've established this since last summer, I believe, is when we implemented these, to maintain an ending fund balance equal to 8.3% of department expenditures, establish a budget for contingencies in the amount not to exceed 3% of expenditures, and that's approximately equal to $550,000, which is planned for fiscal 12. Transfer an amount equal to 2% of departmental expenditures from the general fund to the capital projects fund, and we started this process by identifying $1.1 million for fiscal 12. But as you'll see later on, the city manager is looking to reduce that in his recommendations for his final budget proposal. Continuing on the fiscal policies is to rebuild and maintain a stabilization fund balance to be available for declared disasters or when revenues drop more than 4%, and that's a continuation of what we talked about at our workshop in March. Per NRS, that balance cannot exceed 10% of the general fund expenditures, and we're looking right now to commit, if you remember that terminology, and no, I won't bring in GASB 54 again. We've gone through that torture, eh? But we're looking to commit $200,000 of business license revenue as part of the fiscal 12 budget recommendation. The other policies include reduce the general fund personnel costs so they don't exceed 70% of the general fund base revenues. And the city manager recommendation actually 83.2% was for our tentative budget. I think I misspoke here on this slide. That was for the tentative budget. The recommendation that the city manager put forth is actually going to be 84.3% if approved today, as it stands. And then finally is to consider funding the OPEB, or the other post-employment benefit. And as you recall from our last from our workshop in March, we had received guidance to continue the pay-as-you-go funding. Okay, general fund-based revenues. This is kind of what we're seeing driving the boat here. Property taxes, consolidated, fair share taxes, license permits. This makes up about 87% of general fund revenue. Has been a high percentage, at least 85%. Property taxes, as you can see, is continuing to drop, and I'll show you another slide that graphically represents some of these. Consolidated fair share taxes and license permits, actually we're seeing that level out somewhat. Damage has been done in that area, and we are seeing some stabilization happening in that area. But as you can see, property taxes, which is represented by the red line, is still on a downward angle. So we're still seeing the median home price decline in the area, as I'll show you here in a little bit later. But as you can see on this graph, which shows you the three main the three main revenue sources against the assessed value bars there, you can see where C-tax and license and permits are starting to level out somewhat, and property taxes is still a challenge. Turning to a little bit on the sales taxes, which is 80% of our C-tax. That's probably the one thing we watch very closely, along with unemployment. And this is a very interesting chart that shows a very inverted relationship between the blue line representing the taxable sales within Washoe County against the red line, which is the unemployment. And I guess it's really not a mystery why our taxable sales have just dropped precipitously. People don't work. Disposable income goes down or goes away, and that's the result of our revenues. One thing I'm kind of eyeballing a little bit, if you will, is it looks like this is stabilizing, and it looks like it's trying to say that as best as I can. It's trying to form a new base. Only time will tell. You can see where we used to be level-wise, and how we're definitely reset ourselves, if you want to put it that way. If you want to throw around the new normal, it just seems like that's going to be our range for some time. I don't see significant growth necessarily, but at this stage, stabilizing and flattening out, I'll take. So, continue on with C-taxes. This is just a linear trend. It's just kind of an ugly representation of what we've all experienced. April 07 to June 2010, we actually had 39 consecutive months of year-over-year declines. And again, this past year, we've been seeing some months that have shown a little bit of improvement. Not much. Our C-tax receipts are up about 0.7% for the year. So, when I say improvement, keep that in mind, that we're talking. It's not just falling anymore precipitously. So this is kind of a busy chart, but it's really telling. This is the seasonal sales pattern, and it is very seasonally based. I look for things for clues as to what's going to happen over the course of any months if something happens that falls out of that seasonal pattern. And as an example, 3 years in a row now, we've had September sales roll over, so to speak, compared to August. Historically, September is always up. Whether that means back to school sales or just people getting back into the swing of things after summer, taking a little summer break or what have you. That has always led to a somewhat disappointing shopping season, if you see that roll. So key points in the year. One thing that we saw just this last February is February was lower than January, and even during the height of the recession, February was always better than January. So it's things like that. You just kind of prick up your ears a little bit and watch this a little bit. Now, 1 month doesn't make a trend or anything, but it's things that you look for. So how long is it going to take for us to recover? I actually still get that a lot. So I wanted to throw this up there as just a, a graphic representation. If we get back to a 5% growth rate, which would actually be amazing, but if we were able to get back to that, which I'm not even projecting that we are, but if we were, and sustain that, it would still take us 10 years of steady growth at that level to get back to where we were in 06, which is what our peak receipts were. Just to kind of give you an idea of the timeline that we're dealing with. And I have to give thanks to the Center for Regional Studies. They provided this chart, and you may have seen this before. This is an updated chart through the first quarter of 2011. It's stunning to look at, honestly. This is the red line is the price value of the medium home value is what I'm trying to say. The blue line is a trend line, if you will, assuming that if we had the same growth that we had back in the 1990s, we had experienced a 0.97% quarterly growth pretty consistently through the 90s, and they're saying, well, if we maintained that, where would we be today? And you can see that right now the median home price is hovering around $160,000. And even at that trend, we would have been at about 240,000, call it, and so we're significantly under even what happened. So basically, the bubble happened, came and went, and we're way back to multi-decade low. So we have some work to go there. One of the key things on here, what we're seeing, if I can, I don't know if this works here a little bit. In this area right here, which is where we were about a year ago, we were seeing things flatten out a little bit. But by golly, it rolled over on us. And so we just continue to see struggles and continued weakness in the housing market. So that's a direct correlation to our property tax receipts. Since we're at $160,000 median home price, that's not a real exact representation because the assessor's office values each parcel. So we'll have to see how that goes for Sparks revenue as far as what we're expecting to come in. But I can tell you, the assessor's office values each parcel as of July 1st. And as of July 1st last year, this median home price was closer to $180,000. So that tells me that fiscal year 13, which is one more year out from the budget that we're presenting you today, fiscal year 13 looks like we're still going to struggle. So we're looking like maybe $1 million or even $1.5 million of more property tax devaluation to go. Again, we'll have to see, but this is just strictly based on how the median home price is going. And, who knows, maybe things will turn around here in a month. Okay, same thing as C-taxes. How long is it going to take us to recoup? We're not, in a nutshell. If, and that's a big if we got back to that growth rate that we had enjoyed back in the 1990s, and again, that was a pretty steady growth rate, if we got back to that, we wouldn't recoup our assessed value until, fiscal year 2032. So that's a really long time. Now, this is just the value. That has nothing to do with Sparks revenues because our revenues would be capped at 3%. So even if we do experience high growth for whatever reason, the city's revenues will not increase accordingly. We're capped based on the state requirements. 3% for residential, 8% for other properties. So even if this scenario did happen, our revenues would be still lagging there. Other areas? Please.
Go ahead, Ron.
Jeff, if I could refer to that last chart, is that including depreciation in your?
Yes.
It is, including depreciation.
I did. Mm-hmm.
So 3.88% growth plus 1.5% or minus 1.5% depreciation. Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so other areas of the economy. Again, we're seeing some a little bit of mixed signals. I thought this was some interesting data that on the RSCVA provides on estimated visitor counts and the Washoe gaming win comparatively. We actually saw last year that the visitor counts went up slightly, but the gaming win went down. So, it kind of leads you to believe that people are a little more cautious when they come here. So I think that's just, continuation of what we've been seeing actually since the recession. There's no way to sugarcoat this. This is just ugly. This is from our own community development department on the permits that they've issued. Since the peak, the decline of the number of permits that have issued was 62.1%, and the value is amazingly down 83.6%, and yet it's still dropping. We're still seeing continued weakness there. Last year, 2010, the number of permits dropped 16.6%, and the value declined 36% compared to 2009. So, still struggling. This is opening up now a little bit statewide. Again, I have to thank the UNLV Center for Business and Economic Research for giving me this. This is the leading economic indicators for Southern Nevada, and on the which would be on the green line, I guess that is, and on the compared to the purple line, which is the U.S. Leading index, and the economic indicators are tracking things such as building permits, airport traffic, gasoline consumption, gaming revenues, visitor volume, so on and so forth. Again, this is showing Southern Nevada, and it's showing you, I think what we're, here we go, seeing, at least down there, is a stabilizing of some of the economic indicators, but certainly you can see the break in the trend. Nevada, Southern Nevada is the economic engine of Nevada. At least on sales taxes, it's 75% of everything that's sold in the state. So it's interesting to see how Nevada is tracking the national, and then that absolutely broke at the recession, and we haven't recovered. We've seen a slight little bump up here at the end just very, very recently. We'll have to see. The old phrase was that green shoots. We'll have to see how that starts playing out. But I thought it was an interesting indication that we're seeing things on the national level that we certainly aren't in Nevada. And if I could guess, if I did have this chart in for Washoe County, we would still be struggling a little bit. I would still think this would be down even more so than Southern Nevada. What I'm seeing, Northern Nevada versus Southern Nevada, is that Northern Nevada is struggling quite a bit more. Okay, so just as a summary, this is the general fund financial, just summary history, very brief, what the revenues are, expenditures, and the resulting fund balance. Revenues have been down 18.9% since 07. Total expenditures down 20%, and the fund balance is down nearly 54%. Okay, so where are we today? As we've been talking, we have a budget gap expecting for fiscal 12 of $4.6 million as broken down in these four primary areas. The net operating expenses over revenues, if you will, this is the economic impact, $1.85 million. Adding on the contingency budget, the rest of them are policy related, as you'll see, is $550,000. Transfer to the capital projects funds, $1.1 million, and transfer to the stabilization fund, $1.1 million. And we've built all those into our tentative budget. And like I said, today we'll talk about alternatives that the city manager is recommending for the final budget. So these are the final budget recommendations from the city manager today to fill that gap. As we've presented back at our workshop in March, the Sustainable Sparks Services Initiative basically filled about half that gap at about $2.3 million. The city manager is actually looking to add back in some money, $200,000 for employee development. The thinking there is that now that we've severely reduced our workforce, we need to properly or more properly train them and equip them with the tools that we need to continue on with the sustainable city services. Looking to split the PERS rate increase with employees 50-50. City would pay half, employees would pick up half. Health insurance savings, which we've talked about before, and we've launched kind of an education campaign, if you will, to discuss this and get employee feedback. That would look to save about $300,000 in this budget. We have multiple services and supplies reductions from across the board from different departments that we generated from our core services reduction work that all the department heads and teams were involved with. The position freeze is something the city manager is looking to for authority to do to freeze vacant positions that are not critical. Some I'm sure would be, and we would need to fill those. But the ones that the city manager can deem not critical for this upcoming fiscal year, he's looking to freeze those positions. And if this position freeze doesn't generate the amount of savings that we're looking to get, $701,000, city manager is seeking authority to reduce the transfer of the capital projects funds accordingly. And then finally, reduce the stabilization fund transfer. If you recall, in the tentative budget, we had built in $1.1 million to build up that stabilization fund. City manager is seeking to reduce that by $900,000 and put $200,000 into that for fiscal 12 and build that up over time.
Questions, Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jeff, on the position freeze of $701,000, we don't know what that's going to save?
I think right now, if we had, the open positions now, we've just assuming those are the positions that the city manager would want to freeze, that would be equivalent to about $425,000. So what we're banking on, if you will, is just normal attrition, whether it be through retirement or people moving on for whatever purposes. So no, we don't know the exact number because we're kind of hoping to get that savings, and that's why the city manager is looking for some flexibility. That if those savings don't come in, he's looking to make up the difference, if you will, by way of reducing that transfer to the capital projects fund.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused that we have frozen positions today.
Well, we have some vacant positions today.
Vacant positions, yeah. Okay. Now, we could freeze them out, that's worth $400,000.
Based on what we know now, and we're looking to see, to capture any vacancies that happen throughout the rest of the year.
So the next $300,000 worth of employees that leave, we're going to freeze those positions?
If they're not deemed to be critical, yes.
But we won't know that as council.
I don't think we know that now. I think we're just looking to see, the city manager's looking for authority to act accordingly if and when they happen. And again,
so then the $300,000 comes on up. At what time do you say we're going to take the money out of the capital improvement projects to go ahead and to do that? Is that July 1st? Is that
I think we're targeting
throughout the year? Or?
I think we're targeting March 2012. To kind of be our target, if you will. If we don't receive the savings by then, we're going to definitely know by then. And then we'll, I think, appropriately just either delay the capital projects, CIP projects, or and just not transfer that amount at that time.
So which capital projects are we going to delay till March to find out if we're going to have that money or not to spend?
Do we know that now, or do we want to talk about that during the CIP?
We just did the CIP.
No, I'm like.
Good afternoon. Chris Cobb again, Capital Projects Manager for the record.
There you
go. We have a list of projects that we have prioritized in 1404 where this funding is going. And we've identified 3 projects that would most likely make it with the funding that is available. And the holdover for March, I have a total of 8 other projects, and I could read those off that list to you, what would be on the hold list until March if approved.
I'd like to have a copy of that list in our file so I know what we're talking about.
Absolutely,
if
I can
suddenly we
forward
get
that.
into March and we have a project that everybody's been looking forward to, and all of a sudden, well, we're not doing that because we didn't really lay off or we didn't have those vacancies, so that project is getting scrapped. I think that's best we know about that now and not in March.
I'll read these projects off, and I will provide you with a memo after the fact.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
The projects that we would currently put on hold are the IT tech refresh. Facilities projects are a mixed bag of facilities projects that come up throughout the year, whether it be HVAC or just different facilities have issues. We're going to have to put that on hold, and we'll have to use Band-Aid and duct tape and everything we can to keep things running. City Hall HVAC compressor replacement, PD interior hallway lighting retrofit, ADA mitigation of facilities, street lights, Victorian Square LED retrofit, and then IT voice-over IP process within the City Hall, which is helping with our phone system.
Are these in order of priority?
Yes, sir. Those are the priorities that we are not doing. The top 3 that we have on our list that we need to really go after is the Alf Sorensen dehumidifier project. That deals with the humidity in the pool area and what it's doing to the ceiling and what it's doing to the facility. We need to clean that up. It's causing issues. The number 2 thing on the list that we need to accomplish is building the Little League field bathroom. In the Parks Fund, we're funding building the other 2 fields. That money in the Park District cannot be used to build a bathroom. If we build those other 2 fields, we've got to build a bathroom down there. These are young children, and there's no facility there now. There's just the Sani huts. And then the third thing on the list that we really need to get done is the Aggresso HR payroll system. Right now, they're still using, I believe it's the Bitech, and trying to integrate it with the existing Aggresso we have.
I guess my concern just being hit with this today is that I sit up here at this council meeting every other Monday and listen to computers problems getting started. Been sitting in meetings with IT issues for the last 6 months and hearing department after department after department saying, we're on critical mass now. I remember last year we almost did get payroll checks out because we had a printer go down. It doesn't get serviced anymore. And that's top of our list is to cut out IT.
It would not be prioritized here. And when I provide that with you, the first thing would be back into it. Item 4 is your IT. They're on a list of numbers 1 through 11, our projects.
I asked if it's in a list of priorities. If we don't have $300,000 worth of savings of people that leave the city and the city manager determines they're not essential people to replace, then the first item that gets taken out is IT. Refresh.
I apologize. I read that. What I explained to you was in reverse. The first thing to go would be the voice over IP. The second thing to go would be the Victorian Square LED retrofit project.
And I'll get right back. I don't want to get after these little ones, but this is voice over IP is something that can save the city $6,000-7,000 a month. So we cancel a project that actually has a net savings to it. So I think just let's get the list up because I think this is news to me that this is the way we're going to go with things.
Mr. Kurtz?
For the record, Neil Kurtz, Director of Community Development. In speaking to this list, I want to point out and make sure that the council understands this is not a staff recommendation for your budget. We still fully believe that the CIP, as approved and with the policy funding levels, is an appropriate way to spend your money. However, we understand that you're faced with a series of difficult decisions. And in that, we are bringing you information that we know is not pleasant and that is making decisions that might appear short-sighted. But what we are trying to do is make the best of the money that we do have in putting forth those recommendations to you.
Thanks, Nick. Ms. Ratty.
Going back to Jeff and the...
You moved pretty quick.
So, Jeff, on the vacancies, isn't it true for the past 2 years in a row, as vacancies have come up throughout the year, we haven't filled them because we're reevaluating the budget? I mean, we all know, we start our budget process for the next year basically as soon as the last budget cycle closes, and we've had to make some mid-year adjustments, so we're monitoring that very closely, and the end result of that has been, as vacancies have come open, the staff hasn't been replacing them as a matter of practice because you didn't want to replace somebody that was just we were going to end up having to lay off 3 months later, 6 months later, 9 months later, depending on how the fiscal year we were in went and then how the next fiscal year went. Has that not been true?
That is true.
So if we were to look at the past 2 years of history, do you have any way of telling me what savings we've had in terms of those vacancies over the past 2 years to compare that to the $300,000 amount?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I know there have been a significant number of positions that we've left open, and I know it more from an impact on services standpoint than from a fiscal standpoint, but we've waited, not wanting to, again, fill positions that...
I'm confident we'll probably reach these goals, the 700,000. Assuming, even just the vacancies that we have, again, it's 400,000. Another 300,000 is basically
3 employees.
It's about 3 employees. So, are we going to get, 3 retirements in the next year or, 3, people leave for position changes? Probably.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, history's played out, so I don't have a number for you per se.
And you
but-
can't guarantee it,
Yeah.
but past trends
Well-
would indicate we would get at least 3.
And that's why we just threw in that little bit for the flexibility, because there is that chance, crystal ball hasn't been working too well lately, but there's that chance that we won't get that attrition and everybody will stay put, and we just need the flexibility accordingly.
Okay. But the numbers were based on somewhat on past.
Oh, absolutely, and going forward, every agency has some attrition for whatever reason, and I feel confident that's going to happen.
Thank
Probably
you.
be more than that, but we'll see.
Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt, and then we've got some public comment that we'd like to get into before we get too far into the approval or whatever. Mr. Schmidt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with Ms. Ratty. The difference of this is that in prior years, when somebody's left, that's gone into the cost savings category. This is, we're building into the budget that we're going to lose 3 people. So we're grossing the amount of money in the budget. So you don't have a balanced budget June 30th, 2012, if 3 people don't leave the city and/or you postpone capital improvement projects long enough to find that out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. So, that's writing budget scenarios, and we're doing something different than we haven't done in the past.
That's true.
And I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
We have some public comment. If anyone else wants to make, I got one, but if anybody else wants to make public comment, please fill out a card and come on up. Mr. Eddie Bonine with the Sparks Citizens Advisory Committee, Chairman. Come on up, Mr. Bonine. And I see you have your cohort here, Mr. Byram.
He said he's invisible for this meeting.
Okay.
A spectator.
I find that hard to believe, but go ahead,
If you
Eddie.
have any specific questions, he gladly would join me to answer those.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. For the record, again, my name is Eddie Bonine. I'm the Sparks Citizens Advisory Committee Chairman, and I reside in Ward 4. On Thursday, April 21st, 2011, at the Larry D. Johnson Community Center, we held a regular scheduled Sparks Citizen Advisory Committee meeting beginning at approximately 5:30 p.m. All wards were represented. A quorum was established. Other individuals present were Mr. Adam Mayberry, City of Sparks liaison to our committee, City Manager, Mr. Carey, and Financial Director for the city, Jeff Cronk. In approximately 90 minutes, Sean and Jeff thoroughly outlined for the SAC committee the proposed fiscal year proposed budget recommendations, which included but not limited to the general fund budget addressing departmental structure through reorganization, privatization, shared services, shared communication via employee suggestions, focus groups. We also reviewed revenue streams, financial transfers, and expenses, contingencies, fiscal policies, overall budgetary impacts, new needs, employee pay concessions, and further actions that may be necessary to meet the $4.6 million budgetary gap, and then an additional 6-page core city services review of what could be the impact as well. Upon completion of this presentation, committee members asked a variety of questions, and for clarification purposes, all questions were addressed in a timely manner. There were no immediate committee concerns. This budgetary presentation was an action item on our agenda. This said, the members of the Sparks Citizens Advisory Committee that were present voted unanimously to approve the city manager's proposed recommendation for the fiscal year 2011-2012. The committee's agreement with Mr. Carey's recommended proposal comes to you with complete understanding that it was given that our approval is for input purposes and consideration for review, and nothing more, nothing less. We want to thank staff and council for your dedication to our city, for your diligence and continued transparency through this budgetary exercise. And in closing, on a personal note, I'd like to thank Councilman Kerrigan for selecting me to be a member of this committee and representing Ward 4. And as I mentioned earlier, if there's any questions, Mr. Byram said he'd gladly come up and address those.
Questions for Mr. Bonine or Mr. Byram? Well, thanks, Eddie, for being here. Jack, thanks for being here. I think this is the first time in many, many years that we've had a Citizens Advisory Committee that has really given us some good input, and it's represented by all 5 wards, and there's representation from the mayor. So I think it's a good rounded body of people, gives us a good idea of what's going on outside the community. And I want to thank you for your willingness to serve on this committee. I know it's time consuming sometimes, and everybody's got their own life, but and thanks for coming and reporting to us. We appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, discussion. Questions, Mr. Cronk. Are you done with your presentation? You're waiting for more questions?
I'm always willing to take questions.
Okay.
just to finish up where we were today. This is specifically what the city manager is seeking. So started my talk with that, and I thought I'd end it with it. But just for clarity purposes, city manager, again, is seeking recommendations on these actions. Authority to continue working to implement the high deductible health plan with the health savings account in lieu of the 6% wage decrease. Authority to seek wage and benefit concessions if the health plan doesn't come to fruition, and or result to layoffs if the health plan doesn't come to fruition or concessions don't happen. Anything that you'd like to add, Sean? Or
Okay, questions. Let's open it up for questions. No questions? Looking for a motion. Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to say that thank you to everybody for the hard work you put into this. I didn't get everything I wanted in it, but I could live with what we have. I think it's a good balance. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the city manager's budget recommendation for City of Sparks final budget 2011 and 12, including authority to work with the healthcare committee on all business units to implement a new high deductible health plan for all city employees in lieu of a 6% wage decrease, authority to seek wage and benefits concessions equal to 6% decrease from all those units that do not agree to implement the new high deductible health plan, and the authority to implement layoffs from within those business units that do not agree either to implementing a new high deductible health plan or equivalent wage and benefit concession.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Kerrigan, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 6.9, approval of city manager's recommendations. Any further discussion? Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be opposing the budget today for several reasons. First off, the stability fund not being fully funded, and so according to my calculations, we have about $700,000 for contingency of the city. And the last is exactly the slide that's on up there. And if you look in the first line, it says that we're authorizing the city manager to take actions during fiscal year 2012 to balance the budget. It means we're actually not submitting a balanced budget today because we have to take actions through fiscal year 2012 to balance the budget. We are mandated by law to submit a balanced budget. Why the numbers work going in, and we can say it's a balanced budget, we have to do work throughout the year to go ahead and do that. And I think that we're not doing our responsibility that we're mandated to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Ms. Ratty.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Councilman Kerrigan. I certainly doesn't have everything in here that I was hoping for, but I do think it comes a long way on a couple of the concerns that I had, which were fully funding the stabilization fund, capital improvements fund, and the 78% figure for personnel costs. So again, while I don't think it's perfect, I think it does strike a nice balance between several of the different concerns that council members had from different perspectives. And so I am going to support the city manager's recommendations. And I do believe that it is a balanced budget. We're doing our duty, that scenario planning in the day and age that we find ourselves is part of what we have to do, because the climate is so dynamic, and we see that just from starting our budget process in January, trying to come up with a budget in May, how dramatically those dollar amounts change just over that time period. I think the other reason that I'm going to support this is really, Jeff, and I think you really are doing an outstanding job, because I think the level of clarity that you bring to this
Thanks.
is really impressive. And the slides that keep me awake at night are the ones with the green bars that show how long it's going to take for us to get back to where we once were. And so for me, while they're painful, I don't think we've bottomed out, even though the economy may be showing some tiny little sparks of light. I don't think as a city we have hit the bottom yet. And so if we stretch a little bit too far this year or a little bit too aggressive next year, we're going to need it next year. So so because of that, I'll be supporting this budget.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I want to talk about the balanced part of the budget. If you take a look at what what the motion is on the floor, there's kind of three working parts to it. And like Julia said, this is a dynamic budget. If anybody can tell me what's going to happen next year, please do it right now so I know where to invest my money. If not, then I'll guess. But the way I look at it, if A doesn't work, then we'll go to B. If B doesn't work, we're going to go to C. If we have to get all the way down to C, we will balance the budget. Yeah. So I don't have a problem with any of that. Also, you pointed out something that was very interesting, and I think it just kind of went over everybody's head because everybody forgets about it. But, when you depreciate the city 25% and you can only grow by 3%, you're already in the hole 8 years before we could even get back to where we were last year. And everybody forgets that there's a cap on how much you can increase, but there is no cap on how much you can decrease. And so now that the legislature's in session, they're worried about everything down there anyway, so it's no time to bring it up, but I wish somebody would take a look at that. In other words, I think you should be able to grow as quick as you decline if, in fact, you are growing. I'm going to, kind of think optimistically. But like you said, when you have an overall decrease of 25%, you can only grow by 3%. We're 8 years in the hole already, not counting whatever the economy wants to do. So, and yeah, thank you so much for this, because it really is easy to read. And it makes it very easy for everybody that works for the city and everybody that lives in the city to take a look at this budget and know exactly what we're up against. So thank you.
Mr. Lawson.
I'm going to support the city manager's recommendations, mainly from my standpoint is it's flexible. And if you are in a business anywhere today, that's the key word, is how flexible can you be? And we don't know what's going to happen 6 months from now, much less a year from now. So the whole thing could turn around or it could turn downward. We have no clue. So I like the ability to make some moves on the run, if you will, without being encumbered by a bunch of obstacles. So for that part, I'm definitely supporting the city manager's recommendations.
Jeff, does this meet the spirit of a balanced budget when we propose to the state we're not in any violations or any laws or anything?
No, this will be in compliance with state law.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I wanted that for the record. Anyone else? Seeing none, please vote. Got to wait for backstage.
Do I need to?
Okay, it passes 4-1. Thanks, Jeff. And
thank you.
Thanks to like everyone said, it's probably the clearest that it's been. Unfortunately, it's not good news, to be clear, but I want to thank the indulgence of the city manager and everyone that worked on this, and the council especially. Like Mr. Kerrigan said, he's not getting everything he wants, but he can live with it, and the same goes for, I think, all the councilmen. Nobody's getting exactly what they want. It's not great news, but it's, the council's been very good with working with this. And again, thanks to Mr. Carey for doing such a great job in putting this forward. Okay, next is 6.10, discussion possible approval of a joint meeting motion to designate the Shared Services Advisory Committee to oversee preparation of a plan to transition management of the Community Assistance Center. Mr. Ornelas.
Mayor Martini, members of the council, Armando Ornelas, city planner. On the agenda for the joint meeting last week of the Sparks and Reno City Councils, the Washoe County Commission, the School District Board, and the Boards of Commissioners of the Sierra and Truckee Meadows Fire Protection Districts, there was an item entitled Update, Discussion, and Direction to Staff Regarding the Community Assistance Center. The City of Reno prepared the staff report for that item, and it's attached to this item that's been submitted for the Sparks City Council to consider. There was essentially, in that staff report, a couple of areas that staff of Reno and the other jurisdictions were looking for direction on, having to do with the operations of the Community Assistance Center and how to transition that to a nonprofit, what role an oversight board might play in all of that, and then the roles and responsibilities of the local governments, in particular the city of Reno and Washoe County. When it was all said and done, the discussion boiled down to a couple of motions, which are included in your staff report. One was, and both of these motions were approved by both the Washoe County Commission and the Reno City Council. The first was basically to assign the Community Assistance Center to issue to the Shared Services Elected Officials Committee, which basically reflected a discussion that amongst those two boards that they wanted elected officials to remain involved in the oversight of the operations of the Community Assistance Center, but did not necessarily want to create another board now. And then the second motion was basically to designate the City of Reno as the lead agency, or to continue as the lead agency for purposes of overseeing the operator of the Community Assistance Center. So basically, all this amounts to, in terms of this item, is bringing them forward for the Sparks City Council to consider, as the Sparks City Council did not have a quorum at that meeting.
Questions? Mr. Schmidt?
Wanda, who owns the Community Assistance Center right now?
The facility is owned by the city of Reno. They constructed it. There was other monies, including some from the city of Sparks, but the city of Reno is the owner of the facilities. The city of Reno has been serving as what's been referred to as the lead entity, which means that they have responsibility for the maintenance of the facilities, and also they administer the contract with the Volunteers of America, which is the nonprofit organization that is running the facility on a day-to-day basis. The Washoe County has the most money involved in terms of the operations, the annual operations of the CAC, and then the city of Sparks, has contributed money for the operations as well.
What board presently oversees the operation of the Community Assistance Center?
There is no board per se, other than each of the elected bodies of the three jurisdictions making decisions about funding the CAC, and I guess most directly, Councilman Schmidt, the Reno City Council, I guess, as the entity that contracts with the VOA, I guess would be the agency that has the most direct authority over their operations.
Because I'm confused about why we want to create the goal of utilizing elected officials committee to create a transaction plan to a non-for-profit operation.
The discussion has been that there's a desire on the part of Reno and Washoe County elected officials to have a nonprofit take over basically all oversight for the operations of the Community Assistance Center, which is of course complicated because the funding for the annual operations of the CAC comes by and large from the three local governments, and but that's a desire, and so eventually they'd like to see this CAC basically be a nonprofit organization with its own board. Again, because it's funded by the local governments, the facility is owned by the city of Reno. They see that as a transition that will take potentially a number of years. And so the discussion's been, let's appoint a board to be responsible for preparation of a transition plan to see if we can get to that goal.
I understand why kick this can down the road for somebody else to have to deal with. Scenario. My concern is that the Shared Services Committee was not set up to try to spin off departments or create a new board for the homeless center or anything else like that. It was designed to take interdepartments of cities and figure out how they could best work with one another and consolidate where necessary. And just concerned that this is moving this in another direction that could just end up taking those years and years and years to get something resolved. I mean, obviously, Reno and Washoe County think it's a great idea, so I think there's one more thing on the plate. I think it's diversifying the plate of what the original Shared Services Board was set up to do.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Armando, was there any discussion on who really should be running this, like Washoe County, since that, I wasn't there, so I apologize.
Well, no, there really wasn't a lot of discussion about that at all. The motion.
Shouldn't they be the lead agency on this, since they take care of health care and the and indigency in the county?
They certainly are the three local governments is certainly the agency that has the most direct role in terms of providing social services to the population that is served by the.
But they didn't want to do it.
Well, I think there's been discussion between Reno and the county about that. Quite a lot of discussion about that. The county is taking the lead role, or has taken the lead in terms of going out on RFP to select the operator for the next 2 years. And so, presumably, if a contract is awarded by the county for that purpose, they will now at least have a larger role in the sense that they will be responsible for managing the operator.
Well, wouldn't it make sense for this council just to make a motion to follow the lead from Reno and Washoe County?
Again, that's essentially the staff recommendation, simply because if you choose to do something else, then we can certainly that can certainly be communicated back to the other two entities. But at this juncture, that's the motion on the table.
Is for us just to sit back and let them worry about it?
Well, no, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine with me. I mean, we
refer to the shared services.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I kind of like mine better, but okay.
Ms. Ratty.
I guess my 2 cents, I'm not sure if the Shared Services Committee is the best place for it to live, but from a 2 years' worth of experience, the joint councils, commissions, and school board meeting has not turned out to be the most productive place for staff to get guidance on moving the thing forward. And so if it's choosing between the joint councils, commissions, and school board meetings or the shared services, I think shared services has at least a higher chance of getting the staff the input and the guidance that they need than all 4 of us meeting together only quarterly. So because of that, I would support it.
And I think that's what it was all about when we got down to it, was getting it somewhere where we could put it out for discussion, make some recommendations that were solid recommendations, and then send it back to each entity for approval of those recommendations. I mean, I understand it's not a great place to be at shared services, probably not the best place, but it is a place. It is something that we're already doing. We don't have to create another gosh darn board of some kind or another committee. So it's something we can discuss. I mean, we got to be there anyway and do something. So, it made sense to Reno and the county, and, it makes sense to me too. Is it the best place? No, but some places got to be discussed, got to make a decision and move this thing forward.
Better than all of us in that.
Exactly.
If I may make one more comment. Fundamentally, the idea of referring this to shared services was to work on a transition plan.
Yeah.
The reality is that in terms of what has to occur, essentially regardless of what may or may not happen in terms of a transition to a nonprofit, the CAC is funded by the 3 local governments. There is an interlocal agreement that will, I think is contemplated, will be coming to the local governments in June to provide funding for at least next year. And there will have to be a contract let for an operator. So those things, in terms of the day-to-day operations, the current day-to-day operations, and the funding, those will essentially continue as we've been doing for the last couple of years, at least for the next year, if the CAC is going to continue to operate. This transition plan, I think that's what they're looking for the Shared Services Committee to do that, and maybe I would have saved some of your questions or addressed them in advance if I had said that first, but that's essentially where we are.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, since I don't sit on the Shared Services Committee, I'll make the motion that we approve the 2 motions that were approved at the joint meeting.
We get a second for discussion.
I will make the second also, since I don't sit on the Shared Services Committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Kerrigan, seconded by Councilman Lawson, whom neither of sit on the Shared Services Committee, by the way. Discussion, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 'Cause I just want to make sure, Armando, I heard you right. The only scope we're going to have is trying to find a joint operator in the future. We're not going to be dealing with present-day contracts. We're not going to be dealing with present-day issues of the center or anything else like that. Just trying to get
The transition plan, and then the potentially where there's further discussion about the roles in the future of the entities, primarily Reno County.
And I understand it. My concern is exactly, and that's why I want to make it clear that if we're only in charge of the transition plan, that's one thing. But if we're going to vote next month on who the new contractor is going to be for the next 2 years, and if we're going to be dealing with day-to-day operation type things, then that's a whole different story.
That's my understanding.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we've got that clear.
Okay, any other questions? We have a motion on the floor. Seeing no further discussion, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Armando. 611, consideration of possible approval to terminate the agreement of sale of treated effluent with D'Andrea Nevada Golf Course LLC. Colonel.
I'm Joanne Meacham, and I'm still the utility manager for the City of Sparks for a little while longer.
Yeah.
The agenda item before you is a request to terminate the contract for effluent service to D'Andrea Golf Course. There's benefit to the city in terms of continuing on policy direction to transition customers from contract to ordinance so that we treat customers the same. And so it just eases the administrative burden. There's a disbenefit to D'Andrea in that the ordinance rate for service is higher, and the net change in bills to D'Andrea is $50,000 a year. So their bill will actually go up. D'Andrea has agreed to this provision, to the termination of the contract. They have signed a promissory note for the renegotiation of their outstanding balance on their infrastructure fee. They actually lowered that infrastructure fee, and they've agreed to this movement to ordinance. They found themselves in a position of falling into arrears a couple of summers in a row, and they did this in lieu of termination of service to the golf course. In December of 2010 was the final time, and they agreed to a payment plan to bring them current by April 8th, agreed to the renegotiation of the infrastructure fee, and agreed to the movement of ordinance. So the item before you completes that agreement with D'Andrea. That was done in December. So
questions, Mr. Smith?
We talked about this earlier. Is there anybody here from D'Andrea? No. This gives me heartburn. The additional $50,000 that they're going to have to cough up for the year. I agree with moving them to the ordinance as opposed to a contract. I would really, in my own opinion, is put this off, get somebody in here so we can talk to them. And my feeling is that, okay, they were behind in their payments. We offered them a deal. You've got till April to pay us back, but you're going to 97 cents. They're going to take that deal. I would like to see something else. Put them on the ordinance. Then if they're 30 days behind, shut them off. They won't get behind. That's my only opinion on this. I'm just. They were making it, and another $50,000. It affects everything in the neighborhood. It affects tea prices, green fees, everything. So,
as presented to you, it in effect will do that. Would put them on ordinance, and if they fail to pay, we will put another benefit to the city is on ordinance. There's a penalty provision. That's pretty steep, and we can actually charge a penalty for non-payment.
Yeah, but we're going to go to 97 cents on 1,000
That's
gallons
correct.
plus the
Yeah.
penalty.
That's correct.
I would prefer to keep them at their current rate, then charge them the penalty. Everybody does that. Phone company does it. If you don't make your payment by July 1st and July 2nd, it's another $1. so I would prefer something like that. I just, it's hard enough out there right now, and people get in arrears for one reason or another, so.
But doesn't the ordinance read 97 cents?
Correct, and actually it is 96 cents.
So we can't put
I've
it on
been
an
saying
ordinance.
97 for a week, and I was wrong, yeah, but, yeah.
Go ahead, Neil.
For the record, Neil Kreutz, Director of Community Services. I want to speak to the equity of the program as a whole. One of the reasons that lies behind wanting to get everybody to the ordinance, in addition to the administrative burden, that making life easier for the people who administer that program, is that it will treat similarly situated customers the same. And by going down a path where we would be agreeing to charge somebody less, we leave ourselves in a situation where we are open to accusations of inequity. And that, from a staff perspective, concerns us very much. And from a staff perspective, it is the appropriate step to do, the appropriate step to go forward. It does then have everybody in that situation where, with 30 days of non-payment and 5 days of notice, we are in a situation where we can choose to turn off the water. Not that we want to do that to anybody.
Sure, and I understand that, but like we talked about, they were the first one on the affluent system along with Wild Creek Golf Course. They've been on the system longer than anybody else. We do this with sewer rates, we do it with everything. When people are in arrears, we work something out. And I understand that they've had plenty of chances. But I just have a problem with saying, okay, now you're going to pay $50,000 more in fees this year or in water usage because you were behind.
And in understanding that, I would offer that this is the second year of a pattern where they fall behind during the high usage months of July, August, and September, and come in with their hat in their hand. We work out a payment plan over the year. They catch up at about this time, and then we start the process over. So essentially what we find is that the city, through its effluent program, is acting as a bank for private interests. And that causes us another problem as staff because we don't think that's the proper way for us to do business. So that's another reason I would offer that moving them into the Title 13 rates and everything that comes with it in terms of payments and penalties and shutoffs is the appropriate way to go.
Well, I guess the last thing I'll say is at 66 cents is where they were, and they got behind. Are they not going to get behind at 97 cents or 96 cents?
It's certainly possible.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing I think is that the greatest time of usage is the greatest time of cash flow also. It's when their biggest cash flow is because everybody's playing at the time they have the biggest usage. So, Ms. Ratty.
Did I hear you say that you agreed to it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Yeah, I was going to point that out also. They already agreed to it. But I also like to point out that when water rates, or when, water rights, sorry, couldn't remember what I was going to say, were $38,000 an acre foot. They sold off 107 acre feet for a grand total of about, 4.8 million? Okay, and went to effluent. So, just thought I'd put that out there.
Mr. Lawson.
You just answered my questions. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, looking for a motion. Looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
I'm looking for the motion.
Improvise.
Okay. No, I like to read them word for word. I move to approve that the agreement for the sale of treated effluent with D'Andrea Nevada Golf Club, LLC, for service at D'Andrea Golf Course and subsequently service the golf course under the terms and conditions, did I get that right, including rates and fees set forth in the Sparks Municipal Code 13.85 Affluent Service, with the exception of the infrastructure fee principal balance, which is addressed in a promissory note.
You have a second. Come on, kids.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan to approve agenda item 6.11. Any further discussion? Mr. Lawson.
I kind of have to go along with Councilman Smith that I'd like to hear from D'Andrea. If they're behind at 67 cents, they're never going to be at 96 or whatever. It's just not going to work. So Yeah, when you're holding a gun to someone's head, they'll generally agree with whatever you have to tell them. So maybe there's some other avenue we can look at, but I'd like to see us continue this and have them back and have some more discussion.
Ms. Ratty?
And I really can appreciate that. And I do appreciate that when we have sewer payments that are back, that we work with people. But we work with people within the confines of a set of rules of engagement. And I think it's important that we stay within that set of rules of engagement. And trying to get everybody to a consistent system makes a lot of sense to me. I guess the other thing, and I do really mean this with all respect, but when we sit here in a budget hearing where we say we're going to reduce our memberships by 6%, and we're going to ask the staff to bear the burden of our budget at a 6% rate, whether that be in healthcare or wages or layoffs, to then turn around and say, well, we're going to cut a special deal to a developer that's different from any other deal that we're cutting, just doesn't sit well with me. So I think we need to follow the rules, play by the rules, and if we're going to give folks a break, we don't have the resources to give folks a break right now. You know, if we were flush, that'd be one thing, but we're not flush. We've demonstrated that on several agenda items today, so I would hope that we can follow the staff's recommendation on this motion.
This is an equity issue when it comes to me, and it's totally different than sewer rates. With sewer rates, everybody pays the same sewer rate. And if you don't pay, then you go on a payment plan. You come in, you talk to us, we put you on a payment plan, and you continue to make your payments. If you don't make your payments, then it goes to another step. We never shut the sewer off, obviously, but to me, this is an equity issue. You know, everybody's got to pay the same.
Yes, sir. And to that, I would add on the sewer, if you don't pay your bill, we have the ability to move it over to your property tax.
Yeah.
And by moving effluent contract customers to ordinance, we would have that same ability.
Okay. Mr. Kerrigan.
Yeah, it's all about fairness to me. And who's left that's not on our ordinance? Anybody?
Yeah, we have quite a number.
Okay, let's get them on over.
And that is
you don't
a
have to worry
staff
about
goal.
that now because you're leaving. But we'll get them on over.
That was the intent when we enacted the ordinance
Right.
in 07 or 08, and we did solicit all contract customers. We sent them a letter letting them know that ordinance is available, and should they choose to migrate, they could apply.
And
It
they will when the
benefits some
contract's up.
customers, and it disbenefits others.
Right, and you know, but I agree with that. And Ron, if they get behind, they get behind. Then they can come in and we'll work through it, just like we work through people that are behind on their sewer, just like we work through people that don't pay their water bills. There's always a way to work it, but I think that we need to get everybody on the same page. So that's why I'll support it.
Ms. Ratty.
And I guess I wasn't here for when we moved to ordinance, but I would support if there's a need to look at the rate as a whole and look at it across the body of ratepayers. Again, if that's what's necessary, I mean, if we're starting to see that we have lots of people who are having a hard time with the payment process, it's the looking at one individual differently than the others that I really have heartburn with.
That's correct. And I would add that we do need to look at this rate as a whole and cost recovery in the effluent enterprise. And that should be packaged in calendar year 2012 with the rate study that needs to go underway that I've presented. Correct.
Mr. Smith.
Well, you know, I'm not going to vote for this, but, you know, moving the people from contracts, that we're moving them from contracts to ordinance because they're not they're not using the minimum amount they're being charged with, so we're going to lose some revenue there anyway. And everybody else, even though they're on contract, is at 96 cents. Is that true?
That is correct.
Okay, so
DeAndrea and one other customer.
There's only two customers out there at the 66 cent rate.
Less.
So, I mean, it's not like we're going to make more money moving them to an ordinance. We're going to lose money because of the minimum amount that they're paying. True?
I would expect them to continue engage with us and at a staff level to continue to work with them in payment of their bill. I think at a staff level, we still don't want to terminate DeAndrea. We will do everything that we can to offer them whatever it takes to help them stay viable.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, I believe. Go ahead, Mr. Kerrigan.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, if they want to come over to Truckee Meadows Water Authority, we have 5,280 acre feet for sale.
It's a bargain. Okay, everyone, we have a motion on the floor. It's been motioned and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, please vote. Okay, yes, 2, no, 3, it does not pass. Okay. So at this point, then, you're going to go back to DeAndrea and work out another deal. What are you going to do?
At this point, we need to regroup and figure out what our next step should be. We have an existing agreement that we are still under. And we have a new promissory note. You guys have expressed some interest in wanting to see them in front of you. So I think we've got a few things to chew on. But to be honest, we're a little bit puzzled with the direction you've given us, and we need some time to figure out what to do with it.
So noted. Thank you. Okay, public hearings. 7.1, public hearing consideration and possible approval of fiscal year. Oops, go ahead.
Is that Ms. Meacham's last item?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got confused. You guys confused me. Anyway, Colonel Meacham, Joanne Meacham, thank you so much for, I'm not looking forward to you leaving because, I enjoy your company. You're great
Thank you.
to converse with and talk about different things. You're a very engaging person, I guess I want to say, and you're going back to the dark side, from which you came.
Yes.
The power company, I guess you're going back to. But, what I want to say is there's a lot of people when they're on their last day would not be here in front of us doing this. They'd be somewhere else enjoying some time off. So you're the kind of employee that we respect and that I respect and I enjoy working with. So hopefully someday you will see the light and come back and join us again where you should be. So thank you so much for all you've done for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. If you don't mind, then I'll just let you know that I have a couple of personal pursuits that I'm going after. One is to continue my military service in the Nevada National Guard. And another is to write a book about my father and my trials and tribulations of being a citizen soldier. And I'm going to write the story. I hope it becomes a book. And I have to say that working at Sparks the last 5 years has been wonderful. I've learned much, and much about myself, and much about life and organizations and organizational cultures. And I love city government. It's a calling, and to serve citizens and to serve ratepayers is a worthy calling. And the direction that the city's going under Sean and Neil's direction is a direction that I've completely bought into. And unfortunately, it's just not the right time for me. And so I do maybe see myself coming back someday, and maybe after my military career concludes. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Joanne. Appreciate it. And you can go home early, 15 minutes, or 45 minutes. Okay, 7.1, public hearing consideration and possible approval of the fiscal year 11-12 Community Development Block Grant and Home Consortium Action Plan. Mr. Ornelas.
Mayor Martini, members of the council, Armando Ornelas, city planner. This item asks the City Council to approve for submittal to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development the 2011-12 Annual Action Plan and the proposed project funding allocations. Basically, entitlement communities, CDBG entitlement communities, which the City of Sparks is, are required annually to submit an annual action plan that outlines the activities that we're going to undertake with our CDBG funding, and then in conjunction with Reno and Washoe County as part of the Washoe County Home Consortium. So what I will note is that the estimated amount of next year's grant of $566,492, that's just, that's just conjecture at this juncture. The HUD budget and the CDBG budget will almost certainly be cut. I know that the president's budget calls for a 20% cut to CDBG, and so I would assume that is at least that's the minimum cut. So we will see what we get. But having said all that, based on that amount plus about $67,596 in unexpended funds from previous years, we would propose the following activities in terms of the CDBG side. $113,298 for planning and administrative activities, and that includes funding the contracts that we have with Silver State Fair Housing and for the Continuum of Care. $160,000 for the city-sponsored single-family owner-occupied housing rehabilitation loan and emergency grant programs. Those are the programs that George Graham and the Community Services Department administers. Approximately $275,816 for pedestrian improvements, and this would be working from the city's adopted CIP. So the next project would be on 17th Street between Oxford Avenue and Greenbrae Drive. On Prospect Avenue and Oxford Avenues between 17th Street and Rock Boulevard, and between Sorbagia Way and Russell Way between Rock Boulevard and 9th Street. And then finally, the last item would be $84,974 to fund the provision of services for the homeless at the Community Assistance Center. So if we have not received any public comment to date, we did publish. If we receive any in the next couple of days before the comment period ends, we would try to address those. But we are looking to submit this to HUD at the end of the week.
Questions for Armando? Okay, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
I move to approve submittal to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the 2011-12 Action Plan and proposed project funding allocations.
Do you have a second? Mr. Kerrigan. Second. It's moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan. Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute.
Is this
one thing, yeah.
Is this a public hearing?
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. We'll hold that motion for right now while we have a public hearing.
Oh, that.
Hold that thought while I open up the public hearing. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this particular item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for action. We do have a motion on the floor that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Lawson?
No.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Ms. Ratty. Please vote means you too. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, comments from the council or city manager? Seeing no further business, we're adjourned.
Can I go? No, I know. Is it okay to start? Okay. We'll call the order the redevelopment agency meeting of Monday, May 9th with a roll call, please.
Chairman Smith?
Here.
Agency Secretary Brooks? Here. Agency members Ratty? Here. Lawson? Here. Martini?
Here.
Kerrigan?
Here.
Schmidt?
Here.
Chief Administrative Officer Carey?
Here.
Agency Attorney Eiding?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, I'll open up the public comment. I do not have any cards. Would anybody like to speak at this time? We'll bring it back to the agency. Looking at the agenda, consideration of taking items out of sequence, deleting items, and adding items which require action.
Move to approve as outlined by staff, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Recommendation to approve the minutes of the regular redevelopment agency meeting of April 25th, 2011.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Number 4. Consideration of possible approval of the portion of the City of Sparks 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2011 and 12.
Chris. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency board. Chris Cobb, City of Sparks Capital Projects Manager for the record. I'm here before you today to request approval for the agency's 5-year CIP, FY11-12 through FY15-16. Right now at this time, there are no projects proposed using redevelopment funds for the next fiscal year. Matter of fact, the next 2. However, if we do see a change in economic conditions and funding as such, staff will come back to the agency to work with you about adding projects that that you see and staff sees to provide a benefit in both redevelopment areas. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions at this time for you.
Any questions? Okay, we need a motion to accept the report.
Move to approve the Sparks Redevelopment Agency portion of the CIP for 11-12 through 15-16 as presented.
We have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Number 5.
Budget item. It's easy. You don't have a capital improvement plan.
Consideration of possible approval of the Chief Administrative Officer's budget recommendations.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency. Let me see if I can get this up here. For the record, Jeff Kronk. Continuation of the budget meeting. This is now for the redevelopment agency. Again, same procedure. We're going to bring back to you on the 17th of May. Same procedure for the city or for the redevelopment agency as it is for the city. 17th of May, we'll bring back the tentative budget. We'll have a public hearing, and we'll also bring back the final budget. And this is the city manager's recommendation. I just want to give you the highlights for both areas. And all this detail is also in the back of the packet that you received today. Property taxes in Area 1 are expected to decline by 17.5% from fiscal 11 due to assessed valuation decreases. Motor vehicle privilege taxes is set by statute as part of the C-tax distribution formula. No change is expected there. And our ending fund balance is expected to equal about $3.4 million, most of which 2.2 is designated or reserved for debt service. Total expenditures decreasing by 24.6%. Capital outlay, as we've received direction by this board, is to kind of pull it back and to so we didn't build anything into the capital outlay for this coming year. Common service charges decreased by 5.5%. Interfund services provided, which is a direct charge, if you will, for services provided, is decreasing by 5.2%. And special events, the net expenditures, net of revenues, is decreasing by 35%. The debt service for redevelopment area 1 is just about $2.3 million, and it matures in 2023, and I'll show you what that breakdown is. Aid to other governments, or we call it transfers out, is the agency's portion of the debt service for debt that's actually in the city's name, and that's basically staying flat. These are this is the debt obligations that's in the redevelopment agency. Just original issue about $22 million. Maturity date of 2023. Total debt service for fiscal year 12, $2.3 million. Expected principal balance at the end of the year of a little over $19 million. At the end, we're expecting a unreserved fund balance of about a little over $1.4 million to end this year, and then in next year that would is expected to drop down to $1.2 million. And that is the overview for agency or area 1. I could either answer questions or just plow right on through to area 2.
Any questions? Go ahead. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff, just real quick, the reason why the $4,000 increase in our bond payments?
It's just the debt service schedule.
It just graduates every year?
No, not necessarily every year, but there is some very small amount of variability year to year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, area 2. Again, revenues fund balance. Area 2 property taxes is not seeing the decline that other areas throughout the city or in area 1 that we're seeing, and due to the new development that's actually holding its own and is actually increasing about 3.9%. No bond issuances are expected in fiscal 12. The ending fund balance again is about $2.9 million, of which $2 million is restricted for debt service. Total expenditures decreasing by 7.1%. Again, same as Area 1. No capital outlay for fiscal 12 is planned. Common service charges are decreasing 34.1%. Interfund services provided are also decreasing 7.2%. Debt service is expected to increase slightly by $106,000 from fiscal 11 for the same reasons we talked about before. And again, this also has a component of paying some of the debt that's in the city city's name, but for purposes of that area. These are the two debt issuances that are directly tied to increment that's generated in the area. And then our ending fund balance, unreserved ending fund balance for fiscal 11 is $1.1 million, and that's expected to drop down to $115,000, although that includes taking out or holding, if you will, the board's direction of holding $800,000 in of that unreserved ending fund balance for future debt service. I think.
Any questions? Any questions for Jeff? Mr. Carey?
Jeff, are there opportunities in the coming year to look at refinancing any of our redevelopment debt? Or is it still the same as it was last fall, where it was?
What I know right now, not really. It's not. It's still not looking real good out there for refundings out there. Bond market really exploded on us, if you recall, last fall to late last fall, December area, and it's improved. I'll say that, but not to the point that any of these can be refunded at this time.
Over the course of the year, will we be monitoring for?
Oh, we monitor it all the time. Yeah, if an opportunity presents itself, we'll jump on it, but it just doesn't look promising right now.
About what rate would you be looking for?
As low as they'll be willing to give me.
Well, what are we at
right now? They're rather high. In fact, they here I've got that right now.
6.4.
5 to 6.5 to even 7.5 on the 2009 increments. And we had to pay a higher price to issue those, because these are a little bit lower rated bonds, as it doesn't have a general obligation as a normal, you normally might think. So those actually aren't bad rates on today's market.
Okay, any more questions? Any further questions? Looking for motion? I know.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Comments from the agency? Any members? Mr. Carey? Seeing none, we are adjourned.